It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and pirates, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week, we are, I guess not this week, I guess just welcome to the official Superhero Slate review of Netflix's One Piece. Season 1.
Like we've talked about this show a little bit on our normal weekly news episodes, like the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
So we've finally gotten around to finishing all 10 episodes. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Chris, I'm surprised that we're here doing this at all.
We
like,
didn't, never hit our news thing before it dropped. Like literally, we never talked about it once before it came out. And now here we are.
I think we talked about it a little bit just because I think in one of the Netflix's Geeked weeks or whatever.
Oh, we didn't like it. We didn't know what we were doing with it. We were like, what is this?
Yeah, I think we were just like, oh, they released a logo for it, and we were like, how do we talk about a logo of a show that we don't even watch being adapted to live action?
Boat. I was like, what do we do with this boat? I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we
are
very much fish out of water in this situation, if you will. Fishmen out of water.
Hey, be careful. That they can say that, we can't.
Yeah, that's right. It's their word.
Yeah, but I'm just surprised. I think this is a very sign, just here that this exists, that there's enough here that we at least wanted to talk about it, right? I mean, I guess we could kind of, bury the lead a little bit if we want to, whether we liked it or not. But the fact that we're doing this just shows you enough that there's enough happening here that we thought we wanted to record a separate episode standalone to talk about One Piece.
That's right. Yeah, I think, obviously, this isn't one of those situations where we're like, this isn't the weekend it came out. It took a couple weeks for us to watch it and get through it. And that's necessarily against the quality of the show. It's just, things are happening, and this wasn't the top of the thing. But yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that we are discussing it implies that there is some good to be taken out of this. For that, I will say, for those who may not know, this is not a show about regular pirates. My in-laws were watching it because they heard there's a new show about pirates on Netflix.
Oh no!
And the question I got, my wife's sister asked her, she's like, "How much violence is in this show?" And we were like, "Oh, maybe a little bit." And she's like, "On a scale of 1 to 10, with 8 being Squid Game," and I'm like.
Oh, it's not Squid Game.
I'm like 3. But they're used to watching, obviously Black Sails, right? Actual pirate shows.
Oh.
And all they knew was that there's a pirate show on Netflix. Once they realign the expectations with what this is, it's an anime, and it kind of has, again, those Saturday morning cartoon vibes to it. They're still on board. They're still watching it. So it was just very funny to see people. Again, we don't know everything about anime, but these people even less so. But it was very entertaining to have that conversation. That
is so hilarious to me. One of the, I guess, not unintended consequence, that feels like a wrong phrase to use, but yeah, if a live action anime gets enough heat on it, gets enough eyeballs, and it just starts getting into the mainstream zeitgeist, can you imagine just one of your parents stumbling across it and they're just like, why is the snail a phone? I don't get it. I'm always going to talk about that snail. It's hilarious.
Everything with Wi-Fi is a snail in this show, Mike. Not just phones. The earpieces, everything was a snail. It shows the power of Netflix after all this time, right? Years of Netflix, whether you have it or not, prices are up or you're not sharing anymore, that people who don't listen to shows, don't watch a lot of superhero stuff, and are just regular, everyday end users, came across One Piece because it is so popular on Netflix right now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'd like to mix things up just a little bit, Chris.
Shake the snow globe.
This show is a little mixed up on its own, right? I think we should just go ahead and throw up the spoiler warning.
Oh, absolutely,
just throughout this conversation. I mean, if you're here, 2-3 weeks after One Piece was aired, what are you expecting, right?
One Piece started in 98, 99 as a manga, and has over 1,200 episodes of anime, and this barely touches the iceberg of that. So there is no way, even if we had read the books, like there'd be no spoilers in this, right? All this stuff is out there in the wild for you to read and consist in other mediums. So I don't think there's any spoilers to be had here at the end of this. Even what I thought was the biggest spoiler was like halfway through the season. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But yes, absolutely. If you've not watched this and you don't want to quote be spoiled, back off, watch it, come back in. But I thought, this is where it's going to get spoiler story. I didn't think that the reveal that the general was his grandpa was going to happen so quickly in this show.
I didn't even I didn't know it was a thing, and then it was accompanied with like a flashback, I want to say relatively quickly,
the next episode,
which was just kind of like, it's so, the flashback is weird enough on its own, right? We just see Kid Luffy, who we've already been introduced to, just like playing on the beach, building like his own like miniature little pirate ship, and like his grandpa, which we have no idea how this is his grandpa, right? Is it by blood? Is it by like adoption, or what exactly is coming out here? And he just like trots out from behind the bushes and like destroys his little pirate ship and like picks up his grandson and like takes him away from the beach. I'm like, what is going on here?
And he's dressed in like he just walked out of a Jimmy Buffett concert. Rest his soul.
Yes.
Like he's not even dressed like an admiral or like a marine. He's just in this beach wear.
It's this show, you really have to broaden your idea of like world and world building to like enjoy the show, because I brought this up in our normal weekly news episodes, but like people have clothes with zippers, right? Like normal, like the YYK or YKK zippers, like look down at any zipper you're wearing, it has like those three letters on it, right? So that just means somewhere in this world there's a zipper factory, and there's like somebody making, which is really hilarious to me, but like they show it clear as day on screen. How, like, I feel like I'm the type of person that normally can't get over that kind of stuff, right? I usually really narrow down into like the way you build your world and what should and shouldn't be allowed and how you break your rules, but I guess they're just like, our rule is going to be like, we're just allowed to break rules and this normal convention.
Is this the future? Is this the past? Is it current day? We don't know, and that's perfectly fine. But as you mentioned, they go from wearing modern clothes to immediately popping a snail in their ear as a walkie-talkie with those same clothes on. So absolutely, like it is all over the place. And I will tell you, I love the actors. I didn't think I would like them so much in the first episode, but by the second episode, they'd all kind of grown on me. You have, I don't know their names. I could pull up. I'm not gonna be Iñaki Godoy as Luffy. I just know them by their nicknames. They have green hair guy, the swordsman.
Let's just press forward by using their character names. All of the actors, they're so infectious. And they all grow on you too.
Yep, exactly. Like Luffy, he should be, the way his optimism, his sole focus, he's very narrow-minded on wanting to be the king of the pirates with the One Piece, should be grating, right, with anyone else. But the way they've written it, his delivery, his performance, everyone around him, it just makes him so much more enjoyable. And it shouldn't work like this, but it does. And that's fantastic. I absolutely appreciate what they've done with that to make it work.
And the performances match the tone of the show that they're doing. So I don't know if it's in the second to last episode or the last episode where like, not like, oh my God, when Nami is on the ground like cursing the bad guy's name, I forgot, Arlong. She's cursing Arlong's name. She's on her knees. She takes her knife out and she's like literally like stabbing her arm. I was like, this is so intense, and this is 100% working for me. Like I feel like the pain coming off from this scene about a fishman that's wronged her and her family, and it's just, and then you have Luffy turn around and he's just like screaming to the heavens, "Of course I'll help you." It's just like, it's so wild. Like if you take any of these scenes like out of context and show them to somebody, like, hey, you want to watch this show? They'll be like, what are you smoking? Can I have some of it?
Right.
But it's just, everything is just working. I don't quite understand it, and I'm looking forward to the deep dive video essays that all the smart people out there on the internet are going to make around this show. But like the sheer fact that this worked is great. And I mean, like, should we just like go ahead and just say like, I mean, I'll put it on the record officially. I like this show.
Yeah.
It's good, and I want more of it.
Well, I agree. I loved it. I actually finished it before you, Mike. Mm-hmm. And that's a rarity for sometimes, because I don't sit and binge things as much as or have a I don't watch things while I work out kind of like you do. So like for me to finish it first, I was like, oh, this means this is really good. I really really enjoy this, and it's very hard to explain this show to people who don't know right along the way. But I will say one thing: absolutely love the show. Boy, I will always say every 2 episodes is an arc. Everyone should know this. Every 2 episodes is a story arc, because they literally pick up a new character every 2 episodes, right? Like to join the crew or go on a thing or fight a bad guy. So it's very fun to see that. Again, Mike, you were lucky. They have announced a 2nd season this already, which is very early for Netflix's standards. Mm-hmm. So that is fantastic. I have this in our notes here. The creator of One Piece, Ichiro Oda, is a major creative consultant on the series, and he has like even made them reshoot scenes that didn't sound right or like on screen that he wrote on paper, kind of thing. So like they are very much I think the studio or the production company Shueisha, who works with like the print material, the manga, is one of the production companies for this. So they are really taking the advice from the people who made this to make this a good show, rather than like, okay, well, we're Netflix, we bought it, we're gonna have an American company make this and hope it turns out okay.
Yeah. I mean, I have no qualifications in which to recommend any other One Piece media to anyone, but I did a slight bit of research, and I just watched the very first episode of One Piece, which is streaming on Netflix, and Netflix will remind you every time you open up the app that the One Piece anime is on there, because since the live action one is successful and trending, now the animated thumbnail, every time I open up Netflix, it's front and center. They really want me to dive into it, and I'm sure their algorithm is showing a lot of people diving into it as well. And it was kind of fun to jump into it, right? Because it really brings you back to like vintage kind of like Dragon Ball Z days, where you get to see like 90s anime, like the style and the energy and the vibe. There's not really any CG in sight, where a lot of anime now relies pretty heavily on that. And it's way wackier than I thought it was going to be, right? I obviously the live action ended up being that way, but it is so slapsticky, at least in that first episode, and I'm sure it evolves over time, right? The original Dragon Ball is like that too. The original Dragon Ball feels like a Saturday morning fun cartoon adventure, and then you get to Dragon Ball Z, and like people are getting cut in half, exploding. It's just like it all happens to Krillin, right?
Right. They actually they up it from to adult stuff, but yeah, absolutely. This makes me want to go watch One Piece, Mike. That's the fun part about this, right? It's got a backwards kind of feed to it. Now, will I get to it because I'm very intimidated by 1,200 and something episodes? Absolutely. I
almost don't want to go watch anything, just because I don't want anything spoiled, right? Because now I'm invested in this live action version, so I'm hoping the culture out there on the internet will exist within the same realms that Game of Thrones existed, right? When everyone was watching that, everyone was reading all these people were reading the books, and knew what was going to happen, but I could pretty safely go out there on the internet and not get spoiled of what was coming, like in season 3 of Game of Thrones, right? So hopefully people will be doing the same with One Piece. It doesn't seem to be a problem, at least so far for me. But it's so much fun. I don't know who this guy is at the very ending that they teased with like the cigars.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what his name is. Can I tell you what his name is?
Yes, you can tell me the name.
Smoker. He's got 2 cigars in his hand, and his name is Smoker.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. I mean, if Zoro can hold a sword in his mouth, I don't see why he can't hold 2 cigars in your mouth. I mean, that seems like child's play, really.
Exactly, his whole like character is built around that he holds 2 smokers. So
one thing that actually gets me really excited about hopefully the longevity of this live action series is I saw a tweet from just a random person out there on the internet during like the first week that the show was airing, and from what I can remember, it was like, oh, isn't it really, really funny, like revisiting some of these characters from the beginning of the anime, like Arlong, when we were all watching it and we thought Arlong was like the biggest, baddest character out there on the sea, and now look at where we are now. basically insinuating that Arlong is like nothing. It's like a flea compared to what Luffy crosses later on in the universe. So that gets me really hyped of just like, oh man, this is going to be crazy.
Well, this is exactly what it is. It's the Dragon Ball effect, right? There are 20 seasons of One Piece out there. 20 seasons. They're in 20 seasons right now. Arlong isn't even through the final episodes of season 1. If that tells you how much more is out there of this. So this is like saying, hey, remember when Piccolo was the bad guy in Dragon Ball and now we have gods? I feel like it's kind of going to be like that. Like, obviously not the same thing, but right, like, our first world problems were literally, this green dude on our planet when I was a kid and my legs weren't long enough to kick him. But now we're fighting for the fate of all the universes. So I'm excited to literally, if I'm saying I'm going to go watch some One Piece, I might watch through the first season. How about that? Maybe I'm not watching all 20 seasons, but like I would like to see the anime versions of what we just watched. Maybe for comparison or building out, because apparently it's fairly close in story. So
yeah, we need like a One Piece insider that can like tailor, what we watch live action to the anime, right?
List,
what do I need to watch to cover what I watched in the live action?
Yeah. So I would say, one of my favorite things, and we've talked about this on the regular show, is Zoro's fight with Hawkeye, or Mihawk, if you will, who has the gigantic crucifix sword, and when he takes it and swipes it through that boat early on, and I'm like, hell yes. I love that dude. He is so fun.
That was a big moment for me watching the show, which happens roughly like halfway through the show. Yeah. And I was on board before it, right? But once I saw that, I was just like, oh, I get it. We are going to be getting bigger and grander the more we start moving
There
along.
are powers that be in this world that we don't know and understand yet, and I'm very excited for them.
Yeah, and I love this whole season, right? But I think the middle of it was kind of my favorite portion. I love the Sanji arc. Sanji is like my favorite character. If I had to be
that was so emotional too. Like that was like his background when he tells the story of his background. I'm like, God damn, that's like touching.
Like if I had to be a citizen of the internet and say if I stan a character, I'm all over Sanji. That guy is awesome. His fighting style is so impractical but so cool. Like he puts his hands in his pocket and all he does is kicks.
He's got
in my head canon. I was going to say, in my head canon, I don't know if this is explained in the anime, but in my head, it's just like, oh, he doesn't use his hands because he needs them to cook. He can't possibly risk injuring his hands because that's his dream is to find the All Blue and cook everything there. So, yeah, he's got to just use his legs. I love that.
But that, obviously, he's also doing the Japanese thing where he's got his long hair covering one eye and he's wearing a suit all the time, no matter what he's doing. Very, very anime style, right, if you will, of if you could. But I think it also adds to the fact he doesn't use his hands because you have Luffy who only uses his hands right now, right? So like literally every character has a different fighting style. You have Luffy who's eaten the gum fruit and he is essentially Mr. Fantastic, if you will, in this pirate scene. And he's the only person really with powers. You have Zoro who uses the 3 sword style, 2 and then 1 in his mouth. Nami, she's a cartographer and she's just like a thief, so maybe like the rogue of the party, if you will. And then Usopp, who I can't quite get on board with him yet, but hopefully I can.
Maybe there could be a little bit more with his character coming in the future. But maybe he's the heel, right? Maybe we're supposed to kind of like not really like him, so we don't necessarily have to root for everybody.
Well, we don't like him, but at the end, he's telling the story, and like he's the one who saved the day, and Luffy is like he's everyone's biggest hype man. He's like, yeah, I hear it for Usopp, right? Like he doesn't see that as a bad thing. He just literally
And that's why he deserves to be king of the pirates, because he's humble, right? He'll let other people shine because he's got his eye on the prize, man. I feel like if I had to like teach like a screenwriting course, just writing narratively, I feel like this first season of the show, they just do everything really, really well. I wouldn't say they're reinventing any story structure or anything going on here, but just everything works, right? We're introduced to these characters pretty methodically along the way. Every time we get to them, we get a little bit of their backstory, and I must emphasize a little bit, right? Because I can't stand it when you're watching a TV show and they introduce a new character and the entire episode is just a flashback on their origin story, right? I would say they do a really good job balancing the flashbacks and giving us exactly what we need, right? And then going back to the action, right? Like when we meet Sanji, like we don't need an explanation of why he's on a boat as a kid and cooking. We just meet him there, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of efficiency there going on with storytelling. And like Chris, how you just described all of these characters and their archetypes, they all also have their own all very clear goals, and they all restate them on the ship at the very end of the season. So it's just like all of the goals are clear, all the archetypes are clear, all of the relationships are clear. There's just these perfect like telegraphed moments for drama where you can just like insert problems, and it's all just working very, very well.
I agree, and obviously this isn't a show written for the ground up. This was created 20-something years ago in the 90s, so that they've had some time to work that out and figure out what works, and they really refined it, and it's come to fruition here. It's always like Luffy says, what's your goal? I'm not going to get in the way of your goal. The Kobe kid really, I think for me is the one I don't jive with the most, because he's like that very like I'm not sure of myself character whole time.
The whiny anime kid. It's my most hated trope in all of anime. And saying that, the fact that I can at least stand to watch him on screen, I would say is a pretty good.
He's got a pretty good foil with his He-Man haircut looking partner.
the Nepo baby.
Yeah. His name is Helmeppo, by the way. He's got like a pretty good foil, and like. Yeah, they are two opposite sides of that coin, but absolutely, like, everybody has time to shine and become like their own kind of thing in this. And I would say the biggest, it ends fairly quickly whenever the Garp, the vice admiral, is fighting Luffy at the end, and it's just like he's like, I thought you'd be braver. And he's like, I see, Gold Roger in him, and he's like, all right, let him go. We got to go work on the pirates. So I'm like, there should be a little bit more to this. But overall, this is something I feel like I want to go back and see even more of, and like watch the details and see kind of what I missed. I really enjoyed. We got it early on, and at the end was Shanks, the pirate that Luffy aspires to be. Right, the guy. He's like, it's no big deal. Like whatever, spill the drink me. He's like, there's more ways. You don't have to fight everything to be a good pirate. And then he ends up kicking everyone's ass there at the end.
It was exciting for me to see Shanks still alive, because I don't know anything about the character. I don't know how he exists throughout the lore of One Piece. I just assumed he was dead, and Luffy was out there on his own. But the fact that he still exists and he's out there, I was like, oh, this is really cool and really, really fun.
And he met up with Hawkeye, Mihawk.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, Mike's got to be like, living
and like
this.
This is one thing that like anime storytelling is always really, really good at. Or at least what they really like to do is they like to set up like structures and like guardrails, or at least like charts and graphs for like their story, right? Like, think Dragon Ball Z with like power levels, right? Think of I'm trying to think of another think of like My Hero Academia with like grades and like structures and like your level of like hero status or whatever that you can do. So I love that there's like these ocean lords, right, that are out there, and they're like the top dogs. Hierarchy, that's the word I'm looking for. They're always really good at setting up hierarchy. Same with Attack on Titan. The Titans have all their own hierarchies as well. So I love that, because there's the analytical side of my brain that really loves kind of latching onto that framework, that structure. So I love the fact that the Ocean Lords are the top dogs out there, which I know that means eventually we're going to find a villain one day that can like kick the Ocean Lord's butt like it's nothing. And then that's when we go, oh my God, this villain can defeat an Ocean Lord with the flick of its finger. What is Luffy going to do now? So it's always fun.
It was good to see, like you mentioned that the hierarchy, again, the vice admiral take the two kids. He's like, all right, you're gonna train with me now. He's like, I didn't give up. We're not gonna be doing the same things. I'm gonna train you guys to be strong like he is, right? Because he's naturally strong, and that anime strong. That's why when he threw that cannonball at him pretty early on, he bounced it back, I think, in that episode. Overall, this has been a very, very fun show. I was disappointed that Ian McShane only narrated the first episode and not more of it. Speaking of characters from Black Sails, but obviously I'm sad we have to wait for season 2 for so long right now, with everything kind of out of pause, if you will.
I mean, the production budget for this show is wild, right? Which is why a lot of the sets and the special effects like look as good as they do. You know, for something 8 episodes that's adapting just a crazy whimsical world, right? Which leads me to believe it takes a lot of time to make this. So with all the strikes going on as well, even though it's been renewed for a second season, I got to imagine that this is going to be closer to like a Stranger Things cadence than a normal cadence of a TV show. I don't think we're going to be talking about this in 2024 at all. We might get like maybe some teasers or something like that maybe towards the end of the year, but I think 2025 is probably when we get more of this.
And hopefully, you know, again, I don't want them to rush anything. I think the quality needs to maintain, right? As much as this is, it's very, very purposeful. There is a character called Tony Chopper, who is very much a big part of the crew later on, season 2 and on.
Oh yeah,
and
I've seen it's like an animal. It's not like a human.
Yes, he is technically I think the 6th member to join the Pirates, so pretty close. But he's a doctor. Let me see he's like a reindeer human hybrid, if you will. And he is the doctor of the crew. So he will be joining next season per the creator Ichiro post whenever they announced it. So how are they going to do this? Are they going to keep with the practical effects they've been doing, right? Okay. Or are they going to lean into CGI with this character?
I'm looking up Chopper right now. So
Tony Chopper.
How do you live action this? I mean, if you take them at face value with how they are turning like the snails into live action, right? They're doing it pretty 1-to-1. So I would imagine if they keep up with that, you 3D model this anime character and you plop them on the screen, right? Hopefully they can do that, because I feel like what happens with that, whenever I'm looking at a CG character on a TV show budget, right, over a course of like how many episodes, I'm just like, why are they leaving Chopper out of this adventure? Oh, it's because they don't have the budget to have him on the adventure. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel the budget lacking Chopper's involvement. But looking at the character, it doesn't necessarily look like you can put a little kid in a costume. It doesn't look like you can really match the proportions of his like stick arms, but I don't know, maybe.
Well, so one of the things I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, Mike, because this is going to help maybe you wrap your head around this character. Tony Chopper ate a devil fruit called the human fruit, and his fruit gives him the power to turn into 3 forms: a human reindeer hybrid, or his regular reindeer form, which is what we probably see him in. So
okay.
So I could see maybe them taking some inspiration from Sweet Tooth, which is also on Netflix, to do the human.
Yeah, I was
hybrid.
thinking Sweet Tooth is really okay. I'm looking at his different modes. He has like this monster form.
Yeah, he has these drugs that he takes to give him more transformations for short time frames, but
oh my gosh,
obviously not the whole time.
What's Luffy seeing this character when he invites him on a ship? I love all the illegal drugs. You'll just give me it at a moment's notice.
Yeah. I mean, he's an outcast. I wonder what his goal is. What is his goal, Mike? That's the question, right? So
yeah, you're totally right here, though. I'm looking at kind of his more humanoid figure. You could totally do this with a person, 100%. And they've already shown us like the goat guy or whatever. And I don't know if that shifty marine towards the end of
was
this,
like a cat dude
season
or something like that. Yeah,
well, I wasn't entirely sure if that was supposed to be like he literally was part cat, or if this was supposed to be like, oh, in this world, you know, these are kind of like body modifications that these higher military officers like to do, you know.
Yeah, I don't remember that character's name, but he was a very he was the bad character there at the end, but I don't remember his character name. I'm gonna have to go take a look at this. But
a lot of Chopper sidekicks out there in the zeitgeist right now, huh?
Yes, yeah, a lot. People love Tony Chopper, Mike. You don't understand. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about the show, but like, I'm just infatuated with it. I want to know more. It's a good vibe show, but it has some deep moments, right? Like
oh yeah,
like they're fighting the good fight. It's not about treasure. It's not about backstabbing, and they're all about really the moral of the story is friendship and sticking to your dreams. But like the characters come from very tragic backgrounds, like super tragic. Like everyone essentially has lost on their way there. So And that I think that adds to their humanity and their characters a bit. But I do like we talked about the archetypes. Everyone's different, and that feels very fun along the way. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the one thing I was going to add to this at the end before we wrap up, Mike, is they essentially have power levels. It's their bounty amount, right? You level up by getting more bounty, so that's how we're gonna have a power creep. How much bounty are you worth as they kind of go through the show?
Well, okay, one last cool little thing that I just wanted to point out before we kind of wrap things up. I love that every time a bounty poster shows up, the corresponding pirate like destroys it in front of them, which doesn't make any sense. Totally kind of breaks the third wall of the story, but it doesn't matter because it's awesome. And then every episode opens up with like a custom logo, like a custom like 3D rendered logo.
The Jolly Roger of the episode,
yeah, and I just think that's really, really cool. Like those are like details that you can't get unless you get a big budget, right? If this show didn't quite have as much money, they wouldn't be able to hire the person to do the custom logos, or the cool like effects of the poster. So yeah, it's just, they did it. They're like, if we're going to do this, let's just do it. And it worked. I'm just so surprised that we're here talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm recommending One Piece. I'll recommend it to pretty much anybody with a caveat. I think, if you're going to tell your friends or family to watch it, just give them a little bit of a primer, right?
Yeah.
Just let them know that this is adapting a very wacky cartoon. Don't try to explain to them what anime is, because that's a whole nother fight that you have to do as well. So just say, this is an adaptation of a wacky Saturday morning cartoon about pirates. It's really weird, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good primer to get somebody into
exactly. Don't be like my in-laws who think this is murder pirates.
How violent is it?
Yeah.
Well, they do kill a mother of two little children, but they cut away before she gets shot in the face.
Like I think they asked me that, and I was on the part where obviously Zoro was cut across the chest, and like he was like kind of healing from that. I'm like, well, there's that, and they killed the goat man, but like it's not very brutal, really. At the end of the day. Like Shanks gets his arm cut off or eaten off by the sea beast, but like you don't see blood squirting everywhere. He just doesn't have an arm going forward. So
this feels like if you got a mature 12 or 13-year-old, you can kind of get them on board.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. I think I agree. I love giving some recommendations for it. But boy, just tell them it's a pirate show, but not that kind of pirate show. And you'll be all right. So, all right, Mike. Well, that's it to wrap up our One. This is our One Piece. It wasn't even a review. It was our One Piece recommendation. Really, at the end of the day, maybe you could boil it down to something else. But if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, what can they find you at?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my webcomic at liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where are you?
Find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or video game systems of the same name. If people want to know more about our regularly scheduled show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news, where can people find that at?
Yeah, all you got to do is head on over to superheroslate.com. That is our ship of the show. I was trying to think of the name of the ship. I keep forgetting it. It's named after that goat man. Is it the Mary or something like that?
Well, they call it the Going Mary because his name is Mary.
Mary. Yes, that is the Going Mary of Superhero Slate, superheroslate.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. We're out there on the internet too, social media-wise. We're on like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can go find us if you want. It's probably just better if you follow me and Chris. That should probably be our main recommendation. Like, we don't want to be out here managing social media. We just want to talk about
We barely want to be on it. We just want you to listen to our show every week.
Yeah, but we're at superheroslate.com/store as well if you want to get any merch. We love hearing from you, too. Did you like One Piece? Are you into it? Do you have any crazy stories like your grandma fell into the show and with no context? That'd be fun. I'd like to hear about that. But we also love our super fans. So if you want to be a super fan of the show, if you want to join our crew, crew as in pirate terms, not as crew as in like, old vintage slang. You can.
You're stretching here like Luffy. So
all you gotta do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy. And we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.